The following program contains politically irreverent commentary. If you suffer from an exaggerated sense of self-importance, this show might not be right for you. Check with a PhD in PC, ASAP.
Proclaiming the truth in the highways and byways of the world. Fighting for justice in the dark alleys of politics. Raising the voice of resistance to a fevered pitch. And he doesn't use a teleprompter. Randall Terry.
Hello, friends. Just had a little hangout time with my buddy Ted Nugent at the State of the Union address, and we got to meet privately afterwards. We've got a plan. We're going to have another Live Aid concert. Yep, we're going to raise money for Africa. We're going to send Obama back to his family in Kenya. Give him his own fiefdom to rule over. Yes, a plantation. And the rest of us can be free. Help me and Ted Nugent raise money to send Obama to his family. Back in Africa. Yeah, okay. Rusty Cowpoke, give us a word of wisdom. I'm going to get in trouble if I don't shut up.
Hey, these confounded leaders of them pro-life groups and Christian ministries, they're strutting around like they're some big bull. Well, they might be full of it. Bull, that is. Heck, they ain't even a heifer.
Welcome to the program, friend. I think that the intense, almost blazing question that is on everyone's mind right now is this. How much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? It keeps me up at night. All right, I'll stop playing with it. We're going to talk today about things that might actually have about that much impact on the average American. They just don't care, or they think it's a joke, or the concepts and the philosophies that are being discussed and debated don't matter to them. They just want more bread and circuses. I'm going to Chili's this weekend, getting me that Jack Daniel's steak glaze. Oh, it's going to be good. Listen to the words of Benjamin Franklin. Any society that would give up a little liberty to gain a little security will deserve neither and lose both. Those are harsh words. Listen to the words of Thomas Jefferson, quoted, this is the book, We Won't Get Fooled Again, quoted by Judge Roy Moore. And by the way, before I read the quote, I want to encourage you, call us, look at the number on your screen, go to our website, voiceofresistance.com. If you will pay for the shipping, we'll send you this book for free. Okay? It's that important. And if you can give a contribution to help us with our work, we need it. So I encourage you to get the book, and if you want to help us, go for it. Here is Judge Roy Moore. He's the heroic judge that fought so bravely to keep the Ten Commandments monument inside of the state courthouse when he was the Chief Justice of the State Supreme Court of Alabama. He's quoting Thomas Jefferson, who said, "Let no more be heard of confidence in man, but bind him down, bind man down from mischief by the chains of the Constitution." The founders of this republic had a profound distrust of the nature of man and specifically of men in power. Now think this through. Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence. Thomas Jefferson was the first governor of the state of Virginia. Thomas Jefferson was one of our presidents. He's indicting himself. He knows it, he believes it, and he's not even afraid to do it because he recognizes, after a thorough study of history and of the nature of man, that men are prone to mischief. And he says, bind him down. Don't talk to me about confidence in man. Bind man down with the chains of the Constitution. And this, by the way, is one of the reasons why it is so difficult to change the Constitution. To bring about a constitutional amendment takes an enormous amount of effort, political will, and time, because the founders did not trust not only those in power, but they didn't trust the whims and the winds that blew over the mobs of people. Okay? Today, a mob of people with a vote might vote to take away half of your income. Let's talk about that for a minute, because actually, you know what? Let's take a break. And when we come back, I want to talk to you about Obama's agenda, Boehner caving in, the Republican Party going along with the Democratic Party, but what it means for us in the terms of mischief, in the terms of what Benjamin Franklin spoke of, that we're willing to trade some of our liberty for a little bit of security, and we're going to lose both, and we don't deserve either. Those are harsh words. I just want to know, why were the founding fathers so harsh?
One time when Randall and I were going to Oberlin, Ohio, we came upon a federal marshal who was picking up a runaway slave. The next morning, Randall got up early and pretty soon had everybody so riled up that they ran the marshal out of town. You might say that's where the Civil War started.
Friend, you need to get this book, We Won't Get Fooled Again. Listen to this. I came to the conclusion that most folks were left over from the Reagan era who were no longer warriors, but are now either too old or unhealthy, and had compromised and become comfortable with the Republican establishment. They turned these organizations pretty much into direct mail fundraising fronts and were making tons of money and living the good life in beautiful mansions. The conservative movement had transformed itself from a very dynamic, principled organization in the Reagan years to a bunch of compromising, useless, and ineffective money-making machines. I'm reading to you from the new blockbuster book, We Won't Get Fooled Again, that names names, shows organizations, shows how they say that they're Christian, but they betray Christ, they betray biblical principles in the public square, and we are funding them. Go to the website, call us on the phone, and order it today. I'll send it to you for free if you want. God bless you.
This is the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and nobody rock and rolls like Randall Terry. Ha! Well, unless, of course, it's Jesus Christ. Ow!
Welcome back, friend. By the way, I want to encourage you to go to our website, voiceofresistance.com. If you're a pro-life activist, you might want to join in the cyber pub, we call it, where people rumble. By the way, no rules in that cyber pub, all right? It's prolifewarrior.com, or, I mean, it's the link on voiceofresistance.com. But if you want to jump in with some fierce debates, it's no holds barred. We don't require anything of anyone except that they don't blaspheme, that they don't put up pornographic websites, and that they don't have physical threats of violence against people. After that, rumble, baby. All right. On a recent episode, I spoke to you or asked you a question. What are you willing to put in? What skin are you willing to put in the game? What risks are you willing to take? What abuse of your reputation are you willing to endure? What heat are you willing to take? Well, as an example of skin in the game, being willing to take heat, you may have followed the hubbub that has happened around the comments of Dr. Ben Carson. He spoke within the past couple of weeks at the National Prayer Breakfast with Obama there at the platform, 2 people away from him. So you've got the doctor. In fact, I'm going to play a clip for you. But this man has been getting heat. People rebuking him. How dare you speak such words in the presence of the messianic monarch? Who do you think you are, anyway? Play the tape, and then I want to talk about both the courage displayed and the content.
What about our taxation system? So complex There is no one who can possibly comply with every jot and tittle of our taxes. If I wanted to get you or you, I could get you on a tax issue. That doesn't make any sense. What we need to do is come up with something that's simple. And when I pick up my Bible, you know what I see? I see the fairest individual in the universe, God, and he's given us a system. It's called tithe. Now, we don't necessarily have to do it 10%, but it's principle. He didn't say, if your crops fail, don't give me any tithes. He didn't say, if you have a bumper crop, give me triple tithes. So there must be something inherently fair about proportionality. You make $10 billion, you put in $1 billion. You make $10, you put in 1. Of course, you got to get rid of the loopholes.
You have to love it. You have to love it. What I wouldn't give to be able to preach with Obama 2 people away from me. Oh, I'm not often envious, but in this moment, I'm tempted to be that. Thank you, Dr. Carson, for your forthrightness, your courage, for being willing to take heat, for being willing to suffer ridicule. Jesus said, "Blessed are you when men hate you, revile you, cast your name out as evil, speak all manner of evil against you falsely for righteousness' sake." He stood up. He talked about God. He pointed out the glaringly obvious that God wants 10%. And if you get a bumper crop, you don't pay triple. And if you have a bad year, you don't pay 0. But I want to go a step further about taxation, all right? Number 1, if the maker of the universe requests 10% of our income, hear me, then anything above 9.9 that a government would try and take, anything above that is tyranny. Because the government is putting itself on par or above God, all right? Think about it. God, the maker of the universe, says he wants 10%. The government is not God. The government cannot put itself on par with God. The government cannot pretend to the throne of God. But I'm going to go a step further on a theological and philosophical plane. Follow me closely, okay? There is no enforcement mechanism in the scriptures for the tithe. Again, hear me. There's no enforcement mechanism, and there is no right given by God to the people of Israel to punish somebody who does not give a tithe. Now, clearly, God said, if you don't tithe, I'm going to get it out of you, and I'm going to bring judgment on you, and we actually see that in the scriptures. They didn't let the land rest, so God forced the land to rest with the Babylonian captivity. God talked about you put money in your pocket so there's holes in it, and you lose your money because you're not bringing the tithe. So God reserves to himself the right to bring discipline when the rules of the tithe are not followed. All right, so that's point number 1. But point number 2 is this. The income tax, let's assume for just a minute that the government could have a 9.9% tax on your income. It's still immoral. And here's why. It's none of the government's darn business how much money you make. It is an intrusion into your life. What business is it of Uncle Sam, of Obama, of the federal government, how much money you make? This is an intrusion into privacy, and as we now see, it's once the government has its claws there, then it can just keep ratcheting up the income tax. I mean, when it started, it was 1%, if my memory is correct. And then it peaked out at well over 50% before President Reagan took office. The highest bracket, if my memory is correct, was close to 90%. I mean, this is criminal. This is Marxist. So, what would be fair? What would be just? What would be non-intrusive, and what would echo the sentiments of Ben Franklin and Thomas Jefferson, tie them down with the Constitution, would be a national sales tax, to tax goods and services. If you're a billionaire, guess what you're going to buy? A big yacht, a private jet, a big mansion. And when you make that purchase, guess what you pay? Tax. a big tax. And in case you didn't know this, the federal government, with the exception of a 10-year window after the Civil War, where they did have an income tax to retire the war debt, with that one exception, from the beginning of the Republic until the imposition of the personal income tax, the average taxation for the whole country, federal taxes, state taxes, local taxes, hovered between 1% and 2%, and there was no income tax. No income tax. Well, Randall, how did the government even exist? Because the government existed in those days for the general welfare, not individual welfare, not entitlements, not the redistribution of wealth, but for roads, military, the post office, very delineated, very small areas where the federal government was involved in activities, no intrusion into our lives, no lengthy forms to fill out explaining how much money we made and what loopholes do we get and what exemptions are there. None of that. None of it. And with that type of freedom, America became the most prosperous nation in the history of the world. I'm going to take a quick break. We'll talk more about this when I come back. But again, thank you, Dr. Carson, for your courage.
Oh, people, why do the Jews and Christians have to tell such lies and cause such mischief? If only they would turn to Mohammed, they would know peace.
Friend, you need to get this book. We Won't Get Fooled Again. Listen to this. I came to the conclusion that most folks were left over from the Reagan era who were no longer warriors, but are now either too old or unhealthy and had compromised and become comfortable with the Republican establishment. They turned these organizations pretty much into direct mail fundraising fronts and were making tons of money and living the good life in beautiful mansions. The conservative movement had transformed itself from a very dynamic, principled organization in the Reagan years to a bunch of compromising, useless, and ineffective money-making machines. I'm reading to you from the new blockbuster book, We Won't Get Fooled Again, that names names, shows organizations, shows how they say that they're Christian, but they betray Christ, they betray biblical principles in the public square, and we are funding them. Go to the website, call us on the phone, and order it today. I'll send it to you for free if you want. God bless you.
Don't try to be subtle or clever. Use a pile driver. Hit the point once. Then come back and hit it a second time. A tremendous whack. Sir Winston Churchill.
All right, so I'm going to make an offer to you. You tell me if you would take this deal. You get nothing from the government that is specifically for you, and we eliminate the federal income tax. Would you take that deal? Now, let me get more specific. Nothing. All right? No student loans, no Pell Grants, no money for Head Start, no WIC, no Medicare, no Medicaid, no Social Security. All of the checks that the government sends out to individuals and the little cards and the food stamps, all of it, no. Now, in trade, no more income tax. We go to a national sales tax, which would be fairly low because, as we all know, most of the expenditures of the federal government, the things that they spend money on, are for the redistribution of wealth, sending checks to people and paying for schooling, for my kids to go to school, all of this type of things, all right? Specific welfare, not general welfare. Would you take that deal? If you got to keep over 90% of the money that you made in exchange for not being able to knock on the door of the federal government and say, oh, save me, Messianic Messiah, Obama, help me. Would you take that deal? If no, here's the next question. Would you let 30 or 40 or 50% of us take that deal? Let us opt out. We'll sign a contract that we will never take a penny from the federal government for any of our needs, any of our crises, any of the difficulties that we will endure. We say here, we sign on the dotted line, we would rather die a half-starved free man than live as a well-fed slave. We'll take the deal. Would you let us out? Would you let us roam off the plantation? Would you let us be free men and women? Or would you say, no, you've got to stay on the plantation. You've got to help pay for all this other stuff. You're getting to the essence of the thing finally. That we really are a slave labor force for the federal plantation and a socialist Marxist agenda. I don't want to play by these rules. I don't want to have the federal government be my savior, my provider, my healer. I'm content to have God be Jehovah Jireh, the Lord my provider, Jehovah Rapha, the Lord my healer. I'm confident that the Savior was born in Bethlehem, not Hawaii or Kenya or wherever he was born. I've got to take a break. Think about it. I know I'm sowing seeds of discord in some minds, but that's the stuff that liberty is made of. Don't go away.
They slay the widow and the sojourner and murder the fatherless. And they say, the Lord does not see. The God of Jacob does not perceive. Understand, O dullest of the people. Fools, when will you be wise? He who planted the ear, does he not hear? He who formed the eye, does he not see? He who chastens the nations, does he not chastise?
Friend, you need to get this book. We Won't Get Fooled Again. Listen to this. I came to the conclusion that most folks were left over from the Reagan era who were no longer warriors, but are now either too old or unhealthy and had compromised and become comfortable with the Republican establishment. They turned these organizations pretty much into direct mail fundraising fronts and were making tons of money and living the good life in beautiful mansions. The conservative movement had transformed itself from a very dynamic, principled organization in the Reagan years to a bunch of compromising, useless, and ineffective money-making machines. I'm reading to you from the new blockbuster book, We Won't Get Fooled Again, that names names, shows organizations, shows how they say that they're Christian, but they betray Christ, they betray biblical principles in the public square, and we are funding them. Go to the website, call us on the phone, and order it today. I'll send it to you for free if you want. God bless you. Welcome back, friend. In the closing moments of today's program, I want to bring you up to date on some internal housekeeping matters and ask you for your prayers and possibly for your help. The man who has been producing my television show for several years, Andrew Beecham, that's his picture there, he was recently featured, by the way, on MTV in a real-life special. Go to our website, voiceofresistance.com, or just click on the link that you see there, or rather go to the link you see there on the screen, and you can watch that MTV episode. It was great. Andrew was able to reach literally millions of young people with the truth about God, about Christ, about child killing through abortion. What a witness. Well, Andrew, at my direction, is moving with his new bride to the Washington, D.C. area for two main purposes. Number one, to be my right-hand man there on the ground in D.C. to lead protests and press conferences and things of that nature. And number two, to be the Washington, D.C. correspondent for this television show. He'll be able to interview congressmen. He'll be able to get footage of protests and things that are happening around Washington, D.C. And it's going to really enhance this show. Well, we are raising the money for opening up the office and putting him and his wife up there in the D.C. area. paying for the move. And if you want to help us financially, go to the website that you see there on the screen, or you can call our office if you'd like to make a credit card contribution, or you can just send a check to the address that you see on the screen. And again, if you want to get this book, you can kill two birds with one stone. All right? Get the book. We won't get fooled again. Maybe you can give 50 or $100. Maybe you can give $1,000. We need the help. But no matter what, get the book, pray for Andrew and his wife, and help us as we open up a new front of battle in Washington, D.C. Thank you, Andrew.